What's up, everybody? Let me adjust the lights real quick. Ruby looks good. Today I'm bringing you a different video from vinyl figures and statues, and I want to talk about something that's been heavily influencing me in the past month. Let me just take you out of one 3D world and into a different 3D world that's also 2D, and that is drawing dynamic perspective via the grid method. Now, I randomly came across this video. I gotta thank the YouTube algorithm. They're finally serving me videos of artists and things that I've never seen before after having my browsing page pretty fixed to like 3 subscribers for the past like 5 years. And this guy came across my algorithm, specifically this one right here. And the reason I clicked on it was because I recognized this amazing artist's art, which they reference in the video. Right here, here's the artist. Literally everything they do is with dynamic perspective, and it's just truly like mind-blowing. And I've always wanted to try drawing like this. I've always wanted to understand the limits of pushing perspective, and it's something that I was super interested in 5 or 6 years ago. I was drawing tons of drawings that had like hands coming like in the foreground and feet coming in the foreground, but this artist right here really showed me what that looks like if you just keep doing it and mastering it. And like, it's truly insane some of the angles that this guy is getting. Like, not only is he pushing the perspective of the arena, but he's also got multiple characters fighting within the same composition while also bringing it all together into one beautiful frame that I can just enjoy. This is absolutely beautiful. He's taken the whole perspective game to a new level. This is like a truly inspiring artist to me. But back to what I was saying about the video. I found this video by Rice Brush about a month ago. And I watched the whole thing and I learned about it, and I suggest you watch it yourself because it's insanely helpful for drawing art with this type of perspective-based approach. He highlights so many good artists that have mastered this and gives a pretty technical breakdown of how you can approach this type of art in a digestible way. And he even breaks down this artist's work in a really compelling way that makes it easier to kind of wrap your head around. He talks about how important it is to not only have things on the grid, but clever ways that artists break the grid by taking things inside of the composition and shifting it off of it slightly to help keep things interesting, keep your eye looking around the composition. So after watching Rice Brush's amazing, inspiring video, I decided to spend the next month making every drawing I did on the grid or using the grid as kind of a base and trying to wrap my head around it and learn it. And by finding Rice Brush's video, I knew that this was a video that was meant to be sent to me using the algorithm because it's like it knew exactly what my all-time favorite type of art was. And it's artwork that seems almost unachievable at times, but once achieved, it looks so good. And I've already said before with these statues, creating compositions and things that frame the statue and things coming off the statue, whether it's floating rocks or it's like arcs that are going around the character, while that is tickling to my eye, there is nothing like a really amazing composition executed with like an insanely dynamic camera angle. Now, I remember keeping up with My Hero Academia weekly on Shonen Jump, and we were deep in the villain arc. Shigaraki was having his crazy awakening, and then suddenly I flipped the page to this shot right here. I don't know what it is about this shot. My man Horikoshi back on top once again. He hits you with the unimaginably immaculate angle of Redestro looking back at Twice as he's entering the room. And this is most definitely executed using the grid method that Rice Brush talks about in his video. And I never really connected the two before. How I was so incredibly drawn to such a whelming moment of Twice reaching Redestro. But the way that Horikoshi drew it just has so much storytelling, specifically with the focal point leading my eye straight to Redestro's eye, looking back. You can see how hard that angle is hit because he just has his little footsie popping out right here. In the back, you see Twice reaching Redestro, ready to whoop his ass. But yeah, this is one panel in My Hero Academia that really spoke to me. There's so many more like it, but what's achieving that and making it look so good, I think, is the actual grid on the floor, the windows, and all of the structural environment around it. And what I'm learning is you can almost kind of wing it with the perspective of the characters if you succeed at getting the environment on the grid. Another thing I wanted to show you was Kishimoto's beautiful art. Here's one of the pages that successfully uses that same grid that Kishimoto here is using. Between these two books and the pieces inside it that I've shown you in this rice brush video that just kind of reawakened my love for that dynamic perspective angle, I wanted to try and break it down and understand the approach behind it. So for the past month, I've been kind of incorporating the grid technique within all of the things that I've been drawing, whether it be Patreon character poll, commissions, my comic, and I'm going to show you those pieces I worked on, and we're going to see how close I got to achieving it. I still think that I have got a long way to go, because at first I didn't really understand where the subjects should be placed on the grid. Like, should they be placed on the grid themselves, or should I be using the grid to create a composition? I don't really know how to get my iPad feed going into OBS, so right now we're just gonna do the old-fashioned way of like having it here. And this is the grid that I found online. You could just literally Google perspective grid, and I think this will pretty much pop up. But it's much different than the one that's in Rice Brush's video. So basically how I started all 4 of these compositions that I'm going to show you in a little bit is by taking this grid, and whichever spot spoke to me, I would kind of work within the confines of that. I would be working with having the background follow the grid while drawing the characters separately and trying to fit them best inside of it. So now that you kind of know what I'm working with here, I have this grid. For the next 4 pieces that I'm going to show you, I basically placed it anywhere that I could before starting. So yeah, I'm gonna start with this Bonnie piece that I worked on. This is hot off the heels of the Kuma backstory, so I'm like, let's draw Bonnie. She's pretty awesome. She was also the character Patreon poll winner of, I think, last month. So I wanted to approach it with the almighty grid technique that I stumbled upon. So you can see at first I placed it, and I'm like really trying to go extreme with it. You can see the pose is just crazy. And right now I'm thinking, like, how do I even place this character on the grid? Like, do they go on the grid itself? Still kind of playing with the perspective and seeing if it's gonna like work its way onto the grid somehow. At this point, I'm not really understanding that I should be using the grid as a perspective for the background, and so it's a lot of experimentation until I kind of switch the grid up yet again. You can see by the red and the green lines that are going on right now that I'm getting closer and closer to actually grounding her on the floor, and at the same time I'm like trying to figure out what is her pose even gonna be. Like, I didn't go into it thinking that she was gonna be biting onto a piece of meat, but I was making progress, and so I was like, okay, what if I put Luffy in the corner there? But right here is where you're gonna see the grid starting to take action, is by me grounding her and putting her on her seat and following the guideline of the perspective that I have set here. And by using little indicators in the composition, such as the wooden planks being on the guideline in her seat, and some boxes in the background, I'm just kind of like laying lines down to fill out the composition right now. And you can see I'm using colored pencils here to keep the background a lot more pushed back than the characters. And so I'm taking bold and rich marker colors to bring out Bonnie in the foreground here. But as we get the characters filled out and finished here, I start moving into the background, and I'm using very light colors, really relying on the pencil marks that I made to help cheat your eye into thinking that I have mastered this grid technique successfully. And so this was the first one that I did, playing with the perspective of the arm, like coming way up to the camera angle. And I think I'm gonna give it maybe like a 5 out of 10 for my first try. And so we're gonna switch over to this Tatsumaki commission that I worked on. With this one, I wanted to have her flying way above the city and having the city itself be what portrays the perspective the most. You still have a little bit of it being played with here with the hand in the foreground and the right foot being pushed all the way back. For some reason, Procreate's time-lapse didn't capture her full sketch. You could see here that I'm using my trusty artist support item. When you're blasting through thousands of drawings a day, it's just easier to use that beautiful support tool to help me get the hand angle that I need and use it as a reference. I'm starting to box in some of the buildings under her. I'm happily inking up Tatsumaki gracefully, dreading the moment that I have to switch to the environment and do this perspective background, but as of now, I'm feeling pretty good. I busted out the trusty pencil because I knew I was gonna need to erase some shit, following my super loose guidelines of those buildings that you saw earlier, trying to fill in the blank while following the same grid pattern, basically doing the box exercise that Rice Brush himself was doing in the other video, but with buildings and Tatsumaki levitating above it. Freaking plane, dude. Sorry that you gotta hear planes. I gotta keep the window open because it's hot as hell tonight, dude. But I got my building sketched in. You can see I got my building sketched in pretty well there, and I'm using my brain. I decided I want to put the sun in the top left of the composition, so naturally all the shadows on the opposite side of the building are gonna show up. Filling in the shadows one by one, giving the world a ground by adding in an ocean, a little blue to fill out the sky, and I wasn't really trying to go too dark with the background background elements because number one, I still wanted Tatsumaki to be the main subject and stand out. And number two, I didn't want all of my flaws and my mistakes to be brought to the foreground just to ruin the very meticulously rendered Tatsumaki and making me need to start over. So I played it very safe on this one. I didn't add much more detail other than the rough shape of the building. I could have gone crazy and added more building details and everything, and I'm letting myself work to that point. Those are my two traditional pieces that I tried to do using the grid. And so at this point, I'm really not feeling like I have achieved anywhere close to anything like the amazing electricity and energy that this incredible artist is portraying through all of his work. So next up, I started trying to incorporate the grid method in my comic Sincerely Elise. Just finished chapter 15, 3 more chapters to go until I can finally release this thing. I'm probably gonna do a Kickstarter. I'm fully writing it, thumbnailing it, coloring it, drawing, producing it all on my own. So it takes time, but I did want to incorporate some of this fun grid technique in the panels themselves. I went to go with this angle for the grid, bringing the earth right underneath them and choosing to do an angle pretty reminiscent to this beautiful Redestro page. And so you got Liz pushed up to the very foreground. I didn't push it as much as Redestro was. Kind of tried, but I just feel like I wasn't getting there because I'm like eyeballing the poses. If you eyeball the poses enough, you kind of get halfway and then basically put your hands together and pray that the grid technique is going to bring you all the way to that 100%. Refining Liz here, having a tough time getting the feet to look like they are standing on the bridge. And Ava here was a lot easier because she was kind of incorporated in the background. So there really wasn't much perspective to be working with compared to Liz here, who was at the very forefront of the camera. After sketching around and working on Liz so much, I pretty much settled with this. When you're making a giant comic like the one I am, I've kind of gotten to the point where I just need to be like, this is good enough so I can move on to the next page. That's how I'm feeling about this composition right now at the moment. It's like good enough. It kind of tells the story. It gets the idea across. It's probably not as technically correct as I would have liked it to be, but it gets the job done, and that's what counts. I have all the characters colored, and it's time to work in this background. And so I'm throwing in the bridge and having it distort all the way up towards the edge of the composition. And below them is the ocean, as you can see, with some mountains off in the distance. And with this one, there's really not a lot like a city or like a interior where there's chairs and stuff helping me ground the characters on the grid itself. And so I'm using that rounded horizon line in hopes that it convinces you that I succeeded somewhat of a fun perspective angle here. And so that was a splash page that was in chapter 15. And this one right here was the final piece. It's just a fun little slice of life cover that I chose to put as the cover to chapter 16 to help kind of break them up, take you out of the story for a minute, give you a breather. And incorporating my love for trading cards, you have Liz and Ava opening a pack and looking at what they got. But what's really doing all the work here is the background. Yep, I took them from the last one outside and put them back in an interior, and basically used this grid to help define their place in the world. So let's watch how it unfolded. With this one, I took it, expanded it, and that was it. It was just right in the middle. I'm gonna use the perspective lines on each side as a way to follow the interior of the environment that they're in to help create somewhat of a foundation that I can then solidify using a line art layer. So here I am drawing relatively easy poses because I'm not having to work with perspective on the characters themselves, seeing as it's more of a shot that's like kind of panned out. I have a little perspective on Ava's hand holding the card out, but not enough to really make it too extreme. Here I am drawing hopscotch like a cat on his back, using the grid lines under him to try and ground him on the floor. And now here we are, filling in random shapes. I don't even know what these are gonna be pretty much. And for me, when it comes to this technique, it's really important to get that rounded line in there to help portray that almost fisheye lens look. An interior like this, every single line matters in basically helping sell that perspective. And with this piece, I wanted to use a lot of things that were kind of not attached to the grid itself. There's the card pack on the floor there, hopscotch laying on the ground. But like I said before, having all of those intricate details breaking out of the confines of the grid helps sell the environment that much more, for me at least. I still feel like I've got a long way to go. I was a lot more proud of it than the Bonnie piece. Even though the Bonnie piece is showcasing a lot more extreme perspective on the subject itself, this one is a lot more dependent on the background. But I'm gonna keep at it, and I'm gonna try my best to get even more extreme with the perspective like that one artist that I showed you. Hopefully this video helped you in some way. Really, I just suggest that you go watch the other video because that's the one that actually has all of the teachings and all of the wisdom in it. This was just me trying to fumble about and figure out how to do it. This was fun for me to make because it was kind of over a course of a month that I was trying to get better at this technique. I feel like I made a little progress, but not enough to really achieve that super extreme look that is so beautifully showcased in all of the examples that I showed you at the beginning of the video. So with that said, that's another weekly video in the bag. I am trying my best to keep these videos at a weekly pace. I had to do it a little earlier this week because I'm gonna go to Anime Expo with my wife and we're gonna have a freaking awesome time. I've never been to Anime Expo. That's like a dream convention that I've been wanting to go to for many, many, many years. And I'm gonna be at the Funko booth for a little bit. I think from 4 to 6 on Friday and Saturday, doing like a meet and greet or something. So if you wanna come by and say hi to me, you can. But with all that said, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, subscribe if you want to see more videos like this one, leave a comment, tell me what you think, and I will see you on the next one.